there. Rich, what do you make of what we're seeing right now?
Well, there's a real camaraderie between these two, and it's not my original observation, but one I agree with, that they've gone through parallel paths. Both of them have, were not men whose careers were cut on national level politics. One was a mayor, then one was a real estate developer. Both have been very controversial. Both have been in their positions now for some significant period of time. Trump for 4 years and now another 4. Erdoğan has seen 5 presidents come and go. And they've both been the victims of slings and arrows, so to speak, in terms of very vociferous domestic and international opposition. So I think these men feel a real camaraderie, and I think that alongside the fact that structurally there's convergence, there's a real friendship.
Rich,
there.
if I could just talk to the pictures right now. So we just saw the Turkish delegation also step inside the White House. I saw the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. Then, of course, the communications director of the Republic of Turkey was also there, Burhan Turan. They're all accompanying the Turkish president as part of this meeting. So now I believe the two leaders are heading to the Oval Office. You have covered these meetings before, Rich. So tell us what might be going on inside right now.
Well, usually for a meeting like this, most of it is highly scripted. When the two teams will have been negotiating texts of what is going to be announced and who's going to say what and sort of the key topics for several days. They would have agreed to these things. So again, my understanding based on our discussions in New York earlier this week with our Turkish colleagues is that it is going to be a combination of bilateral trade and areas of cooperation there. And again, we'll see some announcements. They're going to be reviewing those points and then publishing them. They'll be talking about the regional hotspots and where we overlap and align in policy. And it's not going to be everything because there is still some divergence between the two countries on some of their spots. And then they'll probably have some discussions about global world order issues, so about concerns over peace. Always President Erdoğan brings up the function of the United Nations and how it's broken, and the world is bigger than 5 in his word. And as you know from this week, President Trump also a critic of the United Nations, although this week it has more to do with escalators and teleprompters than anything else. So I think all of those things are going to be discussed. But don't forget the experience of President Zelensky of Ukraine earlier this year, right? So things can go awry sometimes. Now, I don't expect that because these two are old friends, so to speak, and I think the Turkish side is very careful and very aware of the fact that there are some things that could be said that could be sort of derail the generally good path that's planned for the conversation. But again, highly scripted. There's going to be some warmth, probably a little bit of joking, and then they're going to get to the review of these issues that are good news stories, especially about the bilateral trade and the regional cooperation on major crises. And
along with that, I think defense ties will also be discussed, right? And one thing that is going to stand out is certainly the F-35 deal, Rich. So Turkey paid, as we know, $1.4 billion for F-35 jets program, and of course, it was removed from that program. It never received those jets. So what kind of development can we see in that regard as part of this meeting?
Right. Well, I know that there's been many discussions, I think, both in Ankara and Washington about how the sequencing of this should work. I think there's a consensus developing in the Congress and in the executive branch that it's only fair that having bought those, 6 F-35s, that's Turkish property. And ultimately, those need to go to Turkey. And yet, especially in the Pentagon and among defense technology experts, there is concern about the S-400. We can't just wish that issue away. The fact that a very sophisticated Russian air defense system that was designed in many ways with algorithms to capture the data from the F-35, it was almost purpose-built for that. Having that in Turkey is and has been a problem. Now, it's a 10-year-old problem, and it's not one without a solution. So talking about the sequencing of how Turkey does something to reassure the United States that there will be no technological threat to the F-35 by having it flying over the same airspace where you have the S-400 located. That could be making it inoperable, relocating it, putting some sort of mutual verification mechanism into place. That can all be done. I'm not sure that they will have done all of the detailed planning to agree to that today, but I think what we'll see is a renewed statement that they intend to do so, and who knows, they could surprise. We may see something on that. If not today, then I would expect it before the end of the year.
And then, of course, Turkey also wants to update its F-16 fleet, right? So if Turkey moves forward with that right now, and we know Turkey is the second largest army in NATO, how do you think that's going to reinforce NATO's posture?
Well, the Turkish vision, as I understand it, for their air modernization, because they have a big fleet of F-16s, but they're older models, is to go with something like 40 of these Block 70 F-16s, which are a leap in capabilities from the ones that they currently have. 40 of those, 40 F-35s if they get back in the program and can purchase more than just the 6, and then 40 Eurofighters. Now, the combination of those or some permutation of that would so vastly improve the strength of Turkey's air defenses that it would essentially render impossible for Russia to try to do on the southern flank of NATO what it's been trying to do on the northern flank. You're aware of the air violations over Estonia and Poland in recent months. I think Turkey has sent an AWACS plane, an airborne warning and control system plane, to Poland. It's made very clear that it intends to help with the defense of NATO airspace. And I think by strengthening with these 120 modern aircraft, which has been kind of the stated goal, not only in Turkish airspace, but for the rest of NATO, they're willing to send those planes to help defend and secure those areas. I think it'd be a very powerful uplift for NATO's capabilities.
Rich Outzen, thanks very much. Fascinating insight.